We don't have the internet of robotics data today. So as I talk with great entrepreneurs and I ask, like where is your conviction coming from? There's almost like an inherent assumption that we have the foundation model for robotics today. But the question there is, there's a lot of data that still needs to be generated there. And there's not just the data that needs to be generated. What is the incentive for generating that data? Every time you run some sort of telerobotics or you run some sort of operation, there is a cost associated with that, right? Let's use self-driving really quick as a counterexample. So in self-driving, you have the two largest players that were basically being funded by balance sheets that were not venture funded balance sheets, like Google, who was basically, funding the cost of Waymo, and, General Motors, who would then go on to fund, the cost of Cruise. Amazon has their own version in a company called Zoox. But this was a game meant for titans because they understood that to create the data required at scale, you needed essentially access to a massive balance sheet to go and do that because there was no incentive to do that. Now, who is the counter orthogonal point of view here? It's Tesla, right? The vision that Tesla has is, I have already equipped all of these cars that are already driving out there on the road with computer vision, and they can be a vehicle, no pun intended, to collect a bunch of visual data. So if I can scale that up in a way, maybe I can arrive at the same fully self-driving, world that these others have tried to build, but through an incentive that looked very, very different than paying people essentially to go and drive a car around San Francisco all day, right? Now let's play that forward in robotics. The area in robotics that, who ultimately today you've got a lot of companies that want to go to lower cost labor countries and ultimately provide some capability to allow people to operate robots all day, every day. Now, even if you do that for months, years, etc., the ability to recreate the internet scale data is unlikely to be true, right? We need some sort of incentive breakthrough. So the founders I'm really excited about, once we're cleverly thinking about this, how do you create this data? How do you label this data? How do you ultimately provide this data? Whether you want to be a research lab yourself, whether you want to sell into these research labs. But as we can embody that level of intelligence into these models, that's where all of a sudden things get very, very exciting. And for me, one of the pieces is timing. Timing is everything.